Did you say something there, Mike?
It's not too late to set the record straight. Better get her done, son, 'cause the hour is growing late. Maybe there's a DJ out there somewhere who has a few regrets and a list of things that he meant to do but hasn't gotten round to yet. Well, maybe he'll feel a little empathy. Play this on his FM show. Better late than never. Here's my thanks to whoever plays my song on the radio. Better late than never. Here's my thanks to whoever plays my song on the radio.
Good day, planet Earth. Michael Litton, the last DJ, host of Ride the Vibe, broadcasting from the beautiful living room-like studio here in Roswell, Georgia, DRSATL. Wahid Gomes, the owner and consummate host, executive producer of the show, and sound engineer extraordinaire. Also in the house, Otis Tillman, working the video. And I just genuflect to these guys. I don't know how they do it, pulling all these pieces together. They got Zoom going. They got Facebook Live going, audio. I just have to show up. I got the easiest job in the house. And I'm totally stoked, really just so fired up and honored to have Tim Donahue on the show. Tim is an EMI-Japan Nippon Crown recording artist. He has enjoyed a multifaceted career featuring 10 solo albums, a major movie soundtrack with the Tokyo Philharmonic. How cool is that? Producing countless TV commercials, a documentary music in Japan, and performing around the world. I mean, oh my gosh. And the nomination of Tim's debut album by Jazz's magazine, Top 5 Jazz Releases, set Tim on course to being the world's premier electric harp guitarist for which he is known today. Wow. Tim, how do you stay humble?
I think you're talking about someone else there, Mike.
Oh, my gosh. And, Tim, you're coming we're kidding in the run-up to the show, Back to the Future, because you are at 9 a.m. on Wednesday morning in Japan.
That's right. Right. I mean, talking about technology here, I mean, how do they do that? It's like,
I don't know.
I got to figure that one out.
The world's upside down, that's for sure.
Yeah, how'd they work that out? I don't never know, but I'll let you know.
It's crazy. Well, Tim, for your fans that are Legion, given your stellar career over so many years, the way we roll Ride the Vibe is we do an old school listening party, man. Back to my days in Boulder when, we'd sit around and listen to albums.
Yeah, sure.
What we're going to do is encourage the listeners to sit back in a comfort of an environment of their choosing and get a beverage of their choice. In the studio, we are featuring one of the coolest products ever, DrinkMate, which they're a company out of Michigan, startup company, and they will sparkle any of your beverages. And I have just become a huge fan of this product. I use it personally, and it is really a big environmentalist. And one of the first rules of protecting the environment is reduce your consumption. So this little device allows you to sparkle any of your beverages and then reduce your consumption of plastic bottles, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm going to taste a little bit of this sparkled water here. You can sparkle your white wine and turn it into champagne. You can just sparkle any kind of beverage. And they've gotten a lot of kudos and such, but AARP has said of them that it's one of the 39th of the top 90 different cost-saving products that you can get in your house. So I encourage you all to go out and check out DrinkMate out of Michigan. Cool company. Doug's the owner, and Kevin Young, one of their consummate customer service folks. Ooh, I like that. Say that again, Tim.
Gonna beam it over to me?
Yeah.
Scott?
The only thing better is it'd be if we had some sake here and you were in the studio or we were over in Japan.
Okay, I'll beam that over to you then.
Yeah, amen. So tell me, how does a boy from Buffalo, New York, get all the way over to Japan?
well, that's a long story, but the short story is we take an airplane. um, sorry. Well, when I was in Berkeley College of Music,
Yeah.
way back when, and most of the people I knew were, well, most of the people that I should say, we played with over there,
Yeah.
were from Japan, and at the time, my girlfriend was also Japanese.
Ah.
So as soon as I graduated, 2 days later, I found myself here.
Wow.
Actually, here in this city, and I should say city. We're up in the mountains, but it's the same area.
Yeah.
And I've stayed ever since.
35
Just worked
years.
35 years. It worked out
Wow.
good. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
That's
been great.
unbelievable. And your roots in Buffalo. Talk about when you first recognized that you had a passion for music, and then I think it's such a fascinating story about how you came to your first guitar back
Yeah.
as a young guy.
Well, my mom, played piano when I was a little
Okay.
tyke. I remember being like 3 or 4 years old. The first
Yeah.
thing I remember was my mother playing Claude Debussy.
Oh.
I mean, that was the first thing I ever heard was Claude Debussy.
Yeah.
Claire de Lune.
Yeah.
It was just, and it totally blew me away.
Yeah.
So that was a real big influence. I mean, that just
You were
I
hooked
had to hear more
immediately. I mean,
music.
that was a kid
was
may
it.
go to a baseball bat or a football.
Yeah.
That was it for you.
Yeah, that was it for sure. And then, later on, as I got a little older, then, the Beatles and Hendrix. But it
Sure.
was all in real time, which I was
Yeah.
glad to be born, at that time.
Yeah. You and me both,
know,
brother.
Yeah, okay. There are benefits to,
Yeah.
to
More
being this
so-
old, Mike.
Yeah. More so now than ever, I think.
Yeah, I guess so. But no, I mean, it affects you,
Yeah.
and it sets you on your life course.
Yeah.
So, and then playing the guitar, I've always wanted to play the guitar. It's probably from seeing John Lennon
Yeah.
on, the Ed Sullivan show, maybe.
Right,
I
right.
remember that vividly.
Yeah.
That's probably seeing the Beatles. I can't really say that for sure, but
Yeah.
and Hendrix's music, it wasn't so much his guitar playing, it was just the music itself. It
Yeah.
really spoke to me, and it was guitar music. So naturally, I gravitated towards the guitar.
Yeah.
I think a
you're-
lot of people, it's a very common story, probably.
Well,
for
but
that.
the unique twist with you, I think, is your dad was working for GM or
yeah, yeah,
GM.
yeah, you
And
know very
talk
well.
about that. So he was doing modeling of the cars in a wood, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, his department, I guess, had a pattern shop,
Okay.
and they would make whatever they need to, shape up
Yeah.
as far as a part, or maybe even a car body or something. And they did it in wood. I don't think they do it anymore. They probably do it all. It's all done in CAD
Yeah.
computer. But anyway, he had all this mahogany, really good quality mahogany in his pattern shop. So I wanted a guitar really bad, an electric, guitar.
Yeah.
And he wasn't really too keen on buying me one. But I said, if I make it,
Yeah.
he says, okay. He brought me home the wood, and I just made it.
How? I mean, I'm just fascinated by that. Like, did you have the wood, or did he have wood making tools? I guess he would have
Yeah.
at his house. So
Yeah, and he wasn't a real big fan of working with wood either. As a matter of fact, he rebuilds cars. He still does it to this day. I mean,
Yeah.
he completely restores from the ground up
yeah.
old classic cars. I mean, he's done over 100. And I
Wow.
mean, so he's a real metal working guy.
Yeah.
And I am too, to a certain degree, but I took to wood because out of necessity.
Yeah.
So he had the tools, and I had the desire. And so
Did
the
you
first-
pattern? Did you get a pattern, or did you just know
Yeah.
what you were looking to do with it, or?
Well, I had seen a Gibson SG, which is
Okay.
was a very new model at that time, and it just completely floored me. I still love the shape and
Yeah.
the cherry finish and everything. So I needed to have an SG. I didn't want one. I needed
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I had to.
That's fascinating.
make
So you really have the combination of your mom's artistic and the musical, and then your dad's kind of engineering,
Yeah.
mechanical. I mean, that's a rare
Yeah.
gift, though.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's the way it turned out for me. So I have to thank
Yeah,
my
both of them.
parents, for not holding me back.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's how that came about, and
I
the rest, is still going to this day.
I love it. Well, I think we need to cue up some music. What do you think?
Okay.
Since we talked about that, we can't just
Sure.
ramble on. The last teacher just can't talk all say what he wants all the time. I'd love to cue up, if we could, fellas, "Voices in the Wind." And this was a
Great.
song that you did working with Paul Rogers. It was a 1997 release, as I understand it.
Exactly.
So I'd like to cue it up. And again, for the listeners, we're not going to play this thing in its entirety because we want you all to go out and buy, however you do that, some of Tim's music. Because it's hard for musicians now, Tim, right? With the gigs kind of going away temporarily, which was a big source of revenue, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, because it's not only me, it's around the world. So
Absolutely.
this is a new reality, but at least if, you're able to record, and nowadays, we're doing it at home most of the time.
Yeah,
unless you
right.
record with the Philharmonic, but that's another story.
We want to talk about that, too.
Yeah, we can do. That's interesting. But no, so the show goes on, but as you said, a lot of people are affected by it.
Yeah. So
So,
go out and buy music, y'all. And we're going to cue up "Voices in the Wind," and then we're going to be right back and talk to Tim about this song.
In the dying of light that lingers where the day meets the night, in the light of the dawn, catch me when I fall. Voices in the wind seem to whisper our name. They're calling me, they're calling you to a land we've never been. In the darkest heart of the tender play of the night, in the eye of the storm, this love will keep us warm. Voices in the wind seem to whisper our name. They're calling me, they're calling you to a land we've never seen. They're calling me, they're calling you.
A man with magical hands, as Guitar Player Magazine said, out of Japan. Tim, spectacular. Talk about, just a couple minutes before we take a short break, and then we'll come back and explore a little more, but talk about how that collaboration came about with Paul Rogers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let me see. Well, I was signed to a record label in Japan called Nippon Crown Records,
Yep.
and they're one of the big ones there, so they had a lot of budget to play with, should I say.
Nice.
And I had done 2 albums for them already, and this is the one that I always wanted to do. But Paul Rogers came about because Eddie Kramer, the producer, suggested to have vocals on it if I was open to the idea, because the album itself was going to be instrumental. So then Eddie Kramer came up with the idea of having vocals, and he asked me who's your favorite vocalist, and I just off the top of my head said Paul Rogers. So a week later I get a call from Paul in England.
Oh my God.
And he says, Tim, I got your demo, and let's do your album. And it was just great.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just like that. And
Serendipitous.
so then I wrote some music for him. I'm sorry?
Serendipitous. And so you had not written Voices in the Wind prior to that connection.
Right. Once I knew that Paul was going to be aboard.
Yeah.
And then I was able to go in that direction,
Yeah.
and kind of hear his voice as I was writing the music. So,
What a beautiful song. Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
And he said he wanted to write the lyrics, but he wanted to know what direction the lyrics should go in. So I
Yeah.
did give him the direction. Normally I would write the lyrics, but in this
Right.
case, if Paul wants to write the lyrics,
Yeah, why not?
you take care of the lyrics. So
Oh, my
yeah,
God.
and it was really good in that way. We collaborated, and most of the music on the album is very intense. It's not bluesy like you would normally hear Paul sing,
Yeah.
which is great. But this album was completely different. So it's very different for Paul to be on an album of this kind of I should say, I don't want to say intensity, but it
Yeah.
is a little bit different. I mean, things are in 10/4.
Yeah.
Some of the music's in 10/4. It's kind of complicated, but Paul sings great throughout,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break to support one of our sponsors, which in this case is DRSATL, and then we're going to be right back. And I want to pick up on that conversation with that collaboration and that album. So stay with us, y'all. We'll be right back with Tim Donahue.
DRS provides professional audio mixing and mastering services. They also provide other creative services such as voiceover editing, audio restoration, and audio forensics. They have great customer service, their work is fast and efficient, and their prices are affordable. You can learn more about their creative services by visiting them on the web at DRSATL.com. Again, that's DRSATL.com, or call them at 404-590-0779. Again, that's 404-590-0779. DRS, when the right sound matters.
And I just can't say enough about the hospitality of DRSATL. Wahid and Otis are just so gracious to let the last DJ say what he wants to say and play what he wants to say on Ride the Vibe. And it wouldn't be a Ride the Vibe without Wahid and Otis, that's for sure. So can't give big enough shout out to them. And for all of you musicians that are in the area, they're right here in Roswell, Georgia. They've got a beautiful little studio here, and they do some outstanding work. So please consider them for future projects. And Tim, this collaboration you had with Paul Rogers cues up nicely the connection we both have with an amazing lady who I have to give a shout out to, Lucy Pillar. So I think I know the answer, but go ahead and share with the audience your connection with Lucy, the lady that knows everybody in music.
The lady that knows everyone. Yeah. Well, Lucy and I guess we made contact somehow after the Voices in the Wind album came out, and she is the consummate Paul Rogers fan, but she's more than just a fan. She is a unconditional supporter, and actually quite involved in promoting Paul and Free, and so obviously having Paul on my album, she was very supportive, and this podcast is
a result
made possible by Lucy's efforts. So I thank you, Lucy, and I thank you for all your unconditional support over many years, because the fans, every fan is very important, and Lucy has just, become the ultimate and fan. I should not use the word fan, but she's actually beyond a fan in that she's actively involved now, and so she's really taken it to that level for the benefit of me, Paul, and all the other members of Free, and Bad Company, I should say.
I can't say it any more eloquently than that, Tim. And I have to, if Lucy's out there listening, Tim and I talked about it in the run-up to the show. Tim suggested it. He said, I would strongly suggest, Michael, that you consider a show with Lucy. And the light bulb went off, and I went, wow, yes, absolutely, because she has so many contexts and such a vast repertoire of experience.
That's right.
It would be a fascinating show. So, Lucy, Tim and I are putting you on the spot on this show to consider coming on Ride the Vibe.
Absolutely.
So your work with Paul on that CD or that album, then has resulted in a long time friendship with him, I would imagine, and a good working relationship.
Yeah, we've been in touch off and on, but then I've gone on to do other projects.
Yeah.
And so, and Paul has done other projects as well. I think, as a matter of fact, he sang with Queen after
Yes.
he did the Voices in the Wind album.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So he did that, and but Paul's been so gracious. Like my mother would go to see,
Yeah.
Bad Company when they came to Western New York, and Paul would get her tickets. Or,
Oh my gosh.
have his management. He'd make it nice
Treat her
for
right.
her. And,
Yeah.
I mean, if I can just use this opportunity to thank Paul for being so nice to me, and my mother too as well.
Yeah. That's
So
unbelievable.
I don't know if I've ever had the opportunity to tell him that, but
I love
there you go,
that.
Paul.
So up first on Ride the Vibe, we like that. That's perfect. That is perfect. So you work with Paul, but then you also had the opportunity, talk about working with Kelly Hansen. I mean, another brilliant lead singer that just from Journey, 10 year, I think a decade-long career as the frontman for Journey. Talk about how that came about, and then we'll tee up Skyrocket.
Okay. Well, yeah. Actually, he's in Foreigner now, right? So like his
excuse
music.
me. Okay. Foreigner. My bad.
He's taken over the lead vocals for Foreigner, and he's stepped right into the position so well, because his voice is just the consummate rock singer. Anyway, the reason I was able to sing, he was able to sing on one of my albums was because again, Eddie Kramer, his name came up during the Voices in the Wind pre-production meetings, as far as singers go, and of course Paul was going to sing on the album, but his voice, his name came up, and I had talked with him during that time, and I says, listen, Kelly, I promise you, let's do my next album together. And he was gracious enough to remember, that I promised him. And so a few years later, I called him up and I said, here's that album I was telling you about. Let's do it. And I sent it to him, and he sang his heart out. My God, and that was called Into the Light.
And we're going to play that track as well, the title track. So did you, again, same kind of thing with Paul? Had you written the music, but then didn't have him in mind, or how'd that come about, Tim?
Let me see, with Kelly, I think most of the music was already written.
Yeah.
And I sort of kind of had his vocals in mind.
Interesting.
There wasn't really anyone else that I was thinking about, but I wasn't really sure if he was going to be able to do it or not until, I did make contact again, and then there it was. So, the music was just perfect for him. And it's music, again, it's really intense. And, because when I play, it doesn't matter if I'm playing jazz, whatever. I mean, the urgency of playing and recording and the urgency of just making music, I mean, you do it like it's your last day on earth.
Yeah.
I really, I look back and I can hear that kind of vibe in the music, that it always climaxes to an earth-shattering. My music climaxes for some reason, and I look back and I think that's probably the reason why. It's the urgency and the feeling of like, this is the last thing you're going to ever do.
Wow.
And,
Where
it's
does
not
that
a conscious thing, but it's unconscious.
Where does that come from? Your time in Japan, or did you have that as a young person as well?
Oh, I think you're either probably born with it or you develop it early,
Yeah.
The intensity of music, the musical experience, it affects you, I think. I mean, at least I can say that for myself.
Yeah.
And I guess it must come out in the music, because it's not something that you think about, we're going to make a big climax in a piece of music.
Right.
And again, getting back to Kelly, he just rode right with it, and the album really turned out,
beautiful.
very satisfying.
I love
the
it.
way he sang too, and Paul and all the other singers I've worked with. So,
well, I think we need to cue up Skyrocket, and I wish thinking back on the theme of an old school listening party, how cool it would have been back in my days in Boulder in college to have had the artist. To be able to talk to about the music. So I really like this. So let's hear Skyrocket with Kelly Hansen on lead vocals, the Foreigner lead singer. DJ playing what he wants to play, saying what he wants to say, and screwing up a little bit. Calling Kelly Hansen the lead singer for Journey, not Foreigner. Got that screwed up. It's okay. And because we're live here, y'all. And somehow Otis and Wahid are making all this come together with Tim in Japan a day ahead of us on Zoom.
Japanese
which is
technology again. There you go.
It's unbelievable. It's pretty cool. So what a great song. So talk about your creative process, Tim, and how it's changed from when you were a young man and how it's evolved over time to where you are today.
Well, I do a lot of songwriting, and that could be in any genre that you can think of,
Yeah.
And I'm writing music every night and recording every night, just about every night. It's like something you do, before your day is over. You're always recording or playing something, and so that process has been able to accelerate once you have your own studio gear. But when I was a kid, the creative process of writing the music, I should say writing, it's not necessarily writing it down on a sheet of music, but it's something that you'd actually play and is put on a cassette or something. That process has not changed. And the interesting thing about the actual songwriting process for me, in a nutshell, is there's no thought involved at all. It just comes. I cannot recall anything I've ever written, and I like doing this and doing this and doing this, and the song is finished. I don't want to say song either. Sometimes they're long pieces, orchestral stuff too, and that I don't have any recollection at all. It just comes. So, and that is a kind of a meditative process where you allow it to come in a way. And I'm not an expert on meditation or anything like that, but that's the way it always came to me. So that hasn't changed ever since I was a kid. I remember I was like 3 or 4 years old and singing melodies in my bed, just melodies were coming to me. And
I hear that so often with consummate musicians, that it's sort of literally out of the womb with that gift. And you've never had a blocked, that artist block that you never, or you've been blessed.
Well, you
down?
get lulls, sure. Yeah. And it's really interesting too when you have a deadline to work, towards, somebody, the big man, is waiting for, your next piece, and they want masterpieces,
Yeah. And I want to talk about that because in the run-up to the show, you described a situation where you were under an intense deadline writing something for the Tokyo Philharmonic. So I want to touch on that a little bit. I also want to touch on your project, Guitars for Freedom, too, when we come back, because that was done, I believe, in the same time period, about 2001. We're going to take a short break to support a sponsor that's near and dear to my heart, Foundation for Premature Infants. And then we're going to come right back and we're going to roll the second half of the show. I mean, the first half hour just flown by, but we'll roll the second half commercial free. So y'all stay with us. We're going to be right back on Ride the Vibe after this short little break to support this killer sponsor, or in my opinion, killer sponsor.
The number of premature infants born in the United States each year, 380,000. That's 9.8% of the total births in the U.S. The Foundation for Premature Infants' mission is to advocate for the right of all premature infants to be cared for in a developmentally supportive and age-appropriate manner. Our vision is to ensure that Premature Infants' Bill of Rights is the standard of care for all babies born prematurely, 24 hours per day, 365 days per year, on all shifts, in every neonatal intensive care unit throughout the world. Please consider making a donation by visiting us on Facebook, Foundation for Premature Infants, or at our website, foundationforprematureinfants.org.
And have to give a shout out to all the folks out there in Facebook land that have so generously supported the Foundation for Premature Infants. It's become our number one source of revenue generation. People, are having a birthday party or anniversary, and it's, they will post out there, hey, instead of giving me gifts or whatever, please consider donating the Foundation for Premature Infants. So we've been blessed to give a lot of money back to clinicians all around the world, in fact, to help them stay current on best practices for caring for these little people who have no voice. So thank you all for that. And right before the break, we were talking about a deadline you faced. Well, I'll let you tell it, Tim.
I think you mean about the film score?
Yes.
Okay. Well, just, it's a long story, but I'm going to really make it.
You make it as long as you want. It's your show.
No. Well, I had okay, I had been asked to score this film, which was going to be, how should I say, promoted very strongly in Japan. It was like a Harry Potter kind of film where there was a really thick book, you know, originally that the story was written, and it got all these awards. So it had kind of this presence in Japan, in the social media. And
what an honor for you. About it. Yeah, and what an honor.
Well, they wanted me to do it, and for some reason they wanted Irish influenced my music, but more Irish. And I don't know if they knew that my name, you know, was an Irish name or not. Maybe that's why I got the gig.
Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up writing this score. And there's a lot of music that you had to do because the film's 2.5 hours long. So there's a lot of music. And it had some of it was with the Tokyo Philharmonic, you know. But you're under these deadlines where, you know, they want masterpieces like tomorrow. Okay. And can you do it? Oh, yeah, sure. You know, no problem. Yeah, right. Well, makes a long story short, I didn't realize there was no orchestrator. I had just assumed, you know, lost in translation kind of thing, that there would be an orchestrator writing the score itself, not the composing, but just the writing all the you know, arrangements and everything and for the Philharmonic. And 3 days before the actual recording of this film score, I learned there was no orchestrator, and they were expecting me to do it. And so it was 2 days before, and here's 5 pieces that I had to write a film score, the entire score for him. Oh my Lord. And you got it done, they asked me, you know, 2 days before. Oh yeah, it's ready to go. And I didn't even have the score.
So you got the Pinocchio nose going.
God, you know, but that's the thing. You let them know that, I mean, you know, because they're putting a lot of, should we say, do re mi into this project, you know. So anyway, to make a long story short, with these deadlines having to be met along the way, you're pressed to come up with material. And as I said a minute ago, you know, it just usually comes to me, right? But when you're under the gun,
maybe not so
it
easy.
Really doesn't come. You can't really think of the music.
Because the
but
pressure.
What did come out, the pressure, but it's a good thing because the pressure brought something out in me that I would never have, I don't think would ever have come out, you know, and I'm very happy that I did it, but you just want to jump out the window while you're doing it because there's a lot of pressure. And that's the way it is in Hollywood and film score. It's not just when I did it. I think everyone's
under that kind of gun. So 48 hours of no sleep. And then I think, is it the same story where you then were asked to actually conduct?
You know very well, don't you? Well, this is an interesting thing. In Japan, you know, I mean, Japan's great and everything, and I don't have any trouble with the language or anything, but things are not really said, you know, up front as much as you would expect them to be, should I say? Yeah. So after having
just the politeness? Is that just the kind of the polite? Or the...
No, that's just the way people communicate. They don't really say exactly what, you know. Yeah. There'll be no subject to the actual in the grammar. Like I won't say like I want to eat something. They'll just, in English it'll translate to be want to eat something. You know, the I is assumed, right? So I mean, but that goes right through all the way to business meetings and whatever. So anyway, to make a long story short, after having had to write the score with no sleep, you know, for 2 days, I mean, and intensely writing and not checking anything. Come the recording day, I'm sitting there at the console with the engineer and the assistant and the music producer and the movie producer, and we're sitting in a row, looking out towards the Philharmonic, and I'm waiting. It's 1:00. We're supposed to start at 1:00. There's no conductor. So,
one of that I or that you got dropped. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one ever said anything to me. So
that it was you.
Automatically. Well, yeah. So everyone's looking at me. Like people on to the left of me are looking like this. People to the right are looking at me. I'm in the middle. I'm going, got it. So I look at the engineer. I says, his name is Mori. Mori-san, you got to help me here. He says, okay. He runs into the closet and pulls out this boombox because I didn't have a baton. Yeah, right. Of course, I'm not. And I'm
You're not expecting.
I haven't slept in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. So you got to help me out. He pulls out this boombox and rips off the antenna. And he says, here's your baton. So I didn't show anyone then. I just quickly ran into the recording studio, and then they're all waiting for him, for the conductor. And here I am.
Yeah.
Who is this guy, right?
Yeah.
And I start conducting.
Was that a first? The conducting part, was that a first as well?
Yeah.
You'd never conducted. So you're in front of the Tokyo Philharmonic conducting your score that you'd written in 48 hours. Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, 5 pieces. There were 5 pieces. It was ridiculous.
Whoa.
And I had no idea how it was going to sound.
And you're doing it with with an antenna.
And I'm doing it with an antenna. But they didn't notice that. They didn't notice that. Yeah. Until at the very, I think it was the very end of the third piece is this dark, climactic Wagner, like Mahler kind of climax, because it's a dark movie,
Yeah.
And it climaxed, and I make the motion like, like this, and the antenna extends all the way out and whack right onto the podium, whack. So wait a minute, what's going on? And these are like real proud classical musicians.
Sure.
The fantastic string section is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And actually, I had tears in my eyes because it was sounding so great, and all that weight came off of my shoulders as I was conducting. So I was really getting into it.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as they found out when the antenna whacked the podium, they're looking at me, and we're being conducted by an antenna with an antenna,
And an American,
an American guy,
with an antenna,
guy? So take 2,
Ah, wow.
So, and it turned out great.
That's
but that was
funny.
good. That was a good thing. I took conducting in Berkeley. I should
you
give
did? Yeah.
Berkeley a plug here.
Yeah.
I took conducting because I need like 2 more credits or something. I'll just take conducting. I'll never use it. You know what I mean?
And there it came into play. Wow.
And there it came.
I'll
So
be
at least I
darned.
knew the movements. The motions.
Well, shifting gears slightly, but kind of in that same time, or a little bit in that same time frame, is Into the Light.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Guitars for Freedom 2 project? How did that come about, and what song did you play on that? And definitely want to encourage people to go and talk a little bit about where that money went and all that, if you would. Tim.
Yeah. Actually, during the Into the Light sessions, we were in L.A., and the engineer, wonderful guy, Dennis Deeger. I had used him like years before on another album. And I remembered, Dennis, I need to record Kelly's vocals, right? Kelly Hansen's vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So I called up Dennis, and I flew out to L.A., and Kelly lives in L.A., so we did it, Into the Light. And while we're doing Into the Light, Dennis was saying that, hey, there's this new tribute album. Tribute is the word. Remembrance of the Fallen. I think it was about 9/11.
Okay. Yep.
I think the donations were made for 9/11.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had mentioned this to me, and I says, geez, I have a track that would be great for the album, and so I just submitted that track, and whoever, I forget the guy that was producing the album, Dennis had known about it because he was involved somehow.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Maybe even he had a track on it because he's a great artist. So anyway, that's how that came about. So it is, as you said, it is a continuation of the Into the Light thing. One thing leads to another.
Yeah,
it's incredible how things move in dominoes.
Yeah. Is that a message you would take away? You would leave for the young aspiring artists, that
yes,
you have to
absolutely.
put one foot in front of the other, and
absolutely. And the relationships that you make when you're young, especially when you're young, for some reason, as you get older, people get into their own world, and it's harder to break into someone else's world, and it's harder to actually make friends when you're older. I just think that's human nature, maybe. But when you're young, especially if you're in college or something like that, the most important thing you will probably get out of college, aside from the education, is the now we call it networking.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that's the cool word.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it just, we used to say connections in the past, but more of on a human level, you develop a relationship that will last your whole life.
Yeah.
And
you're an example of that, and then how it manifests itself in, like you said, the domino effect, one domino going and the next and the next.
Exactly. I mean, I can look back and you can go back and see how one relationship led to another relationship, and it's all within the music business, or the music industry. So it's you're forwarding your career.
Yeah.
with these relationships, and
Unbelievable.
it's as you're young, as you said, just as you said, Mike.
Yeah.
When you're young.
I love it. Well, let's in fact hear the title track, "Into the Light," and if we could tee that up, fellas, that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
A modern day Les Paul, Player Magazine, Japan. Love that. It's such an interesting juxtaposition to hear Kelly's voice outside of Foreigner with your music. It's a really unique, very cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it. Great album, as all your music is. And so, again, want to encourage listeners to go out and download, because Tim will make like 0.001 cent on each each download. But you want to get his music. I mean, it's just spectacular stuff. So you've done albums primarily, I think, and talk about the shift away from albums, Tim, to the singles, and what your thought is on that, because it seems like it would be somewhat incongruent, because you have such a big body of work and compose and all the vastness that you've put together. I mean, what do you think about this trend towards one-offs?
So yeah, that's interesting topic.
Yeah.
Used to be where, if you heard a single, it was actually, the door to an album.
Right.
You'd want to get the album and hear more.
Yep.
And I'm not so sure if that's the way it is nowadays,
Yeah.
as much as it was in the past.
Right.
And so in that way, the single itself is a standalone work. Of course, any piece of music is such, but still, when it's from an album, the artist would hope that the album would be listened to, and not just the single.
Yeah.
So it depends. For some music, I guess the single, there might not be that much variation on the album itself. A lot of it might be, you could use all the tunes as a single,
Right.
But it doesn't really matter. I think the artist wants to hear the album to sell.
Yeah.
At least from my experience.
Has it changed the way you think about music? Has it influenced you, or do you still stick to your core?
Yeah, I don't really think about trends too much.
Yeah. Good for you.
And the business so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's constantly changing. The business model itself
Right.
And I think that's what singles are actually.
Of course.
They are another business model.
Yeah.
And as was it David Gilmour, he said that's a whole nother industry.
Yeah. Right.
In a way, and so I mean, yeah. So for a lot of people who have been doing this for years, singles are a gateway to an album. The rest of the album.
Yeah.
But for other people who are, more trendy, the single is the.
Is it? That's what they're doing. Yeah, that's the way they're releasing.
And that's okay. That's okay too.
Sure.
But for me, that hasn't changed that fact hasn't changed.
The way you do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly.
Well, so talking about albums and singles, so this is off your Madman and Sinners release, 2004, also with Kelly, I believe?
No, this is with James Labrie.
Oh, James Labrie. Okay.
He's from the band named Dream Theater.
Okay.
Yeah, it was another. Just the music that we're hearing today is mostly in the rock vein.
Yeah.
I kind of kept it that way.
Yeah.
But this is more going further extreme.
Yeah.
It's progressive metal.
Yeah.
And James Labrie and Dream Theater, that's what they do all the time.
Yeah.
But for me, this is another step into
different. Yeah.
My
Shows
world.
your versatility, though. I mean, it's amazing because, and I want to come back to Jazz's magazine's, your top 5 jazz artists, and then, compared to this song. So let's cue up, if we could, fellas. Feel My Pain with James Labrie on vocals and Tim Donahue.
Feel my pain. It's been 1,000 years, shed a million tears, but one thing lasts forever. The scars of love will find you deep inside as you step across the flaming deep divide. Climbing up the walls, I've been through it all, and through it all, yeah. The scars of love are burning deep inside as you step across the flaming deep divide. The man above is watching in the sky. Take a step across the flaming deep divide. A young man prays, a friend betrays. It's all the same now. It's all the same to me.
You are back on Ride the Vibe. Michael Litton, the last DJ, playing what he wants to play. And in this case, playing the great music of Tim Donahue, who's all the way in Japan, a day ahead of us at 9 a.m. in the morning. Unbelievable. Amazing. Well, your versatility is just unbelievable. So you early on in your career, your debut release, Jazz's magazine labels you, they put you in the top 5 jazz releases. And this Feel My Pain, such a departure from that. Does it throw your record label off?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this album, the Madman and Sinners album, it's so intense from the beginning to the end, but it's beautiful too.
Yeah.
And that's why progressive metal, the genre, for those people who don't really know what it is a combination of just about anything you could think of as far as like textural things. It's not just like metal all the time. There's beautiful, I've got Gregorian, Gothic voices throughout, and chorus and beautiful pipe organ. It's really beautiful. But then there's the other side of that coin on the same album, very extreme. So the record companies, Mike, very confused.
Yeah,
And,
they
um,
are. But you have
but
the confidence to be able to do that, and they give you the license
yeah.
to do it, which is
Yes,
very
exactly. The licensing, yeah, these last couple albums have been licensed as opposed to me just signing with the record label
Yeah.
and letting them do everything. Licensing, you're responsible for the graphics, for the
Yeah.
recording, everything. But then at the end of the day, you're able to license that around the world.
cool. Right.
And the funny thing is, can I tell that story about? I was going to tell you about the jazz
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
connection
Yes.
here. Okay, looking on the CD Universe
Yeah.
website, I guess they're selling CDs. It's like the Amazon of CD
Ah,
sales.
gotcha.
And this was when the album first came out, Madmen and Sinners first came out, and it's at the top of the chart, right?
Yeah.
It was #1 on the sales chart, and it was also back ordered too. So there's people waiting to buy it, but
Gotta love that.
it's already been sold
Yeah.
that well. But if you look at the chart, I still have the graphic too.
Yeah.
Maybe someday I'll send it to
Yeah,
you.
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
It's the jazz chart. It's on the jazz chart. This is amazing because how in the world can this album
Be a jazz-
The album opens with a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. The first song opens with the countdown of a nuclear explosion. So obviously someone at CD Universe had
Had they read the
they must
review,
have-
do you think, from Jazz's? Or-
Well, no, I think, well, yeah, they must have cross-referenced one of my earlier albums, because there were two that were more of in the jazz vein.
Yeah.
And they must think, oh, this Mad Men and Sinners must be jazz.
It's gotta
so
be
they
the
put it
same.
in this in the chart. Nora Jones was second. I swear to
Oh
God.
my God, that's awesome.
I'm going,
love that.
oh my God. So whoever, I thank you for everyone for buying the album
Yeah.
because, it was a ranking of the sales. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I pity all the jazz people
They
who were
bought it and
expecting-
went, whoa, not exactly
yeah,
jazz.
saxophones and swing.
Yeah.
They were expecting.
Harry,
got a nuclear
Harry
explosion.
Connick, not quite. Well, this hour is just flying by, and I want to get these last two songs in. And we're going to do this one in a video format because we're on
Okay.
Facebook Live. So how about that? So we're going to cue up Heaven. And this is, you're working with, and say his name,
Yeah.
Akira?
Akira.
Akira.
Yeah.
So,
Akira.
and we'll
Yeah,
talk
just-
about that. We're going to play the last two songs will be with Akira. And let's
Yeah.
cue up the video of Heaven, just a little bit of it.
Great.
A virtuoso, Billboard magazine, Tim Donahue. Talk about that track just real briefly, and then I want to save a little room for Slow Joe.
Okay. Well, these videos, this one that we just heard and
Yeah.
the Slow Joe, both of them, it's just me and the drummer playing. There's no bassist or keyboard or anything.
just
So
sounds
everything is
so-
played on the harp guitar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unbelievable.
at the same time. So that's what I'm mostly doing nowadays.
Yeah.
Is doing mostly harp guitar based
Yeah.
recording and sometimes we'll do a video. Of course, before COVID,
Yeah.
we were playing quite a bit.
Yeah.
We would have loved to have come over to the United
Oh,
States, just the
man.
two of us,
Yeah.
and perform.
Well, I hope that will happen
Thank you. Yeah.
when you get back on this. You get back on this time zone.
Yeah, we'll get back on this time zone. So
I hope that
I have a hard enough time keeping a trio together.
Yeah.
So I just would have to go with two people.
Too. Yeah. Such a full sound though. That
Thank
harp
you.
guitar is it's incredible.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to play all the parts, and it's taken 30-something years to bring it to this point. But,
Yeah.
and that's in addition to the rock stuff that we just heard.
Yeah.
This is another side. That,
Such a broad range.
yeah,
Wow.
thank you.
Well, this time is just flying by, but I want to hear a little bit of Slow Joe right before
Okay.
we wrap it up, and then we'll come back with your parting thoughts, future gigs, future projects, that kind of thing, Tim. A little
Great.
bit of Slow Joe on Ride the Vibe. Tim is pioneering a technique that has endless possibilities. Incredible. Mike Varney of Shrapnel Records. Tim, unbelievable. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Kind of wrap it up, if you will. Put a bow on this thing, if you can. Maybe talk about future, some work the Cage maybe working on, or
My gosh, the Cage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for asking, Mike.
Yeah.
Before I was going to thank you first of all, but for this whole podcast.
I can do my one little
doing.
one little bit of Japanese. Domo arigato.
All right. I'll give you the sword. You got the sword. So yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
The Cage is another thing. It's actually a musical that I had written a couple years ago, and like a full-length musical. It was about
Yeah.
2.5 hours long.
Wow.
And we performed it in Japan, and it was great, except that it's very expensive to do. And an investment, opportunity is still there. And so I'm not going to continue to perform it unless the investment is there in a very
Sure.
expensive project. But it's orchestral and
Yeah.
it's metal but it's this beautiful story.
All written and
and-
produced and done by you.
Yeah, and it's all in English too. So there was how that would come across in Japan.
Yeah.
There was a way to do that, and that had to do with translating everything prior to the actual
Yeah.
performance and having film, be played, and so that everyone knew the story. And then we performed it, and it was nice. But again, as I said, it was very expensive, so that project is still on hold.
Yeah.
Um,
In the works. So
in
for
the
those of you
works.
out there with some big bucks that have been enjoying this show, hook up with Tim. Tim Donahue. And Tim, it's just been a delight to have you on Ride the Vibe, and you're so gracious to get up early. I know you're typically a late night person, so to be a day ahead of us at now 10:15 in Japan, that's just unbelievable. And again, big shout out to Lucy Pillar. I want to get Lucy on the
Yes.
show at some point in
Absolutely.
time. Tim, you're the best.
Absolutely.
Look forward to seeing you here in the States when when things get back to normal.
Mike, you're the best. Thank you for what you're doing for all us musicians.
God bless you. Domo arigato.
Don't worry.
We're out of here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Otis. Thanks, Wahid.
Peace.
It's not too late to set the record straight. Better get her done, son, 'cause the hour is grown late. Maybe there's a DJ out there somewhere who has a few regrets and a list of things that he meant to do but hasn't gotten round to yet. Well, maybe he'll feel a little empathy. Play this on his FM show. Better late than never. Here's my thanks to whoever plays my song on the radio. Better